Okay, everybody, this video we are going to be walking through the process of installing the new COVID reporting module that helps Pika and OCM using organizations comply with LSC's new requirements related to reporting on COVID cases that are funded by the CARES Act, as well as COVID-related cases funded by other funding sources. So, the first thing you're going to want to do is go to command line on your server and become root. And if you I recommend using Pika Toolkit for adding fields to the database. Otherwise, adding fields to really large tables like the activities table and the cases table in Pika, you might have to schedule downtime to do it because it locks the tables during while that change is being made. So to install Pika Toolkit, you can do apt-get install Pika Toolkit. And you're going to need your root password for your database. So on this server, this is hosted in Amazon Lightsail. And when you set up a Lightsail server, it drops the root password right there. So I'm going to go ahead and copy that. But yours, depending on the distro in use on your server, it may be elsewhere. So let's do PT online schema change. We'll start with the dry run. And we're going to add a column of C19 case. And the database name on this server is actually called CMS, but yours might be called something different. And the table we want to add it to is cases. Go ahead and paste that root password. And on this one, this will happen on Bitnami servers, but probably not in yours unless you're using this same service. So I need to tell it where the MySQL service socket is. Password again, and do a dry run. Dry run was complete. That indicates that there weren't any syntax issues. So all we have to do now is change from dry run to execute. And then on your server, this is going to take quite a few minutes. And actually, before you actually do that, I should mention something else. So before using this tool, you should check out how much free space you have on your server. So, for example, on this server, I have 16 gigs available. I've only used 3.6 because this is a fresh Pika server that I created just for this video. But I would recommend that you have a significant amount of free space. You can take a look at the size of your database backup file and maybe add like 50% onto that, because Pika Toolkit, what it does is it actually copies your whole database and makes the changes, and then it swaps like the names. Basically, it renames it. So temporarily, while the tool is running, you're gonna use up twice as much space as you would otherwise. So there's a risk if you don't have enough free space of filling up your entire volume, and then Pika will stop working. It might be a challenge to get it to start working again. So really make sure you have enough free space before you do this. So since I do, I'm going to go ahead and run this and paste my password in again, and it says successfully altered CMS cases. So now let's do the modification to the activities table. In this one, we're going to be adding a column called C19 time. All right. So, assuming everything looks okay, and you got successfully altered as a result of both of those, what you should have now is if you go to your mega report, you'll see that there is now a C19 case and a C19 time that have been added to your database. So the next thing that we're going to do is we are going to let me get back to my document root again. So go into your CMS custom folder, and you probably will already have a subtemplates folder, but if you don't, you would have to make it, because we are at least going to be modifying the sitemap template. And then you can go back to here and go into CMS, and the next thing we're going to do is actually download the configuration screen PHP file. So to get the URL for that, you can go to the repository, click on the file, open raw, copy that, and we're going to drop it right here. And then we're also going to come into subtemplates, and we are going to drop COVID report settings into subtemplates. All right, so now you're going to want to check and see if you have ever modified the activity template, the case info template, or the sitemap template before. If you have, they should be in the dash custom subtemplates, and you'll want to edit them there. If you have not modified them before in your instance of Pika, then you'll want to copy those files here. So copy that was not what I expected. So we're going to copy activity.html, subtemplates. We're going to copy caseinfo.html to subtemplates, and we're going to copy sitemap. To subtemplates. And again, if these files are already present, don't copy them because you'll overwrite them and you'll wipe out some customizations of your instance of Pika. So let's come back here to subtemplates. And now let's start with activity. So with activities, it can be kind of hard to find the right spot for the LSC other services screen. So I search for this begin L, and we'll come down here. I think it makes sense to add this by the funding source, but of course you can add it wherever you want it, if you want it somewhere different on this screen. When you enter this template code, make sure that there's no space between the two parameters, or else it won't work. Also, you may be wondering, well, why don't we do a checkbox like this one here? You can do a checkbox instead of yes, no. Everything will work the same way. You would just type checkbox. The only difference between, and the reason I don't recommend that is that you won't be able to tell the difference between a no and a null. So you may have where people didn't check the checkbox, instead of it showing up as no properly in your report, it might show up as just a blank. So I always recommend organizations actually use drop downs, because it's a lot more consistent in terms of data integrity than checkboxes. All right, and we'll also edit caseinfo.html, and I'm going to add that one right here by funding as well. And again, you actually don't even have to put it on case info. If you have some other tab you want to put it on, you can put it on eligibility or wherever you want. But I think it makes sense here. So we're going to do C19 case. Yes, no. So at this point, I better create a case. Bart Simpson. So at this point, we have our, oops, I forgot to add a label. And that looks ugly, because I forgot to put a line break. Alright, so at this point, we have a functional way to track whether a case is COVID related or not. We should also have a functional way to add like an outreach event, workshop or clinic. Let's say that 10 people attended, Zoom educational session, and you can enter that it was COVID related that way. Other things that you're going to need to do to prepare, if you have not already added a funding code for CARES Act, you want to enter a funding code for LSC CARES Act. You will also want to add, if you only have 2 categories for gender, this would be a good time to add like another binary, because the LSC report kind of assumes that you have another category, and you aren't just using female and male. Okay. So now that we have the functional ability to track COVID-related time and cases, let's add that link to the sitemap. So let's come down to the system screens, and I'm going to add a line right after the other settings. Called COVID-19 report settings. So that's in the wrong spot there. That closing tag where it goes. System COVID report settings .php. Another thing, I think most organizations probably track PAI cases with an office code, but if you track it, and so that's how my report is designed, but if you track it some other way, let me know and we can talk about, I could modify my report to, in the reporting tool to conform to whatever your organization's practice is. So now let's set up the report. So we're going to say the COVID supplemental fund code, that's CARES Act. Other LSC fund codes, just LSC. You may have like a LSC native, in which case you can select by holding down control, you can select multiple. PAI, select that. Gender codes, like that. And we'll select our Asian non-Hispanic code, our Black non-Hispanic code, our Hispanic code, our Native American non-Hispanic code, our other ethnicity codes, and our white non-Hispanic. So now we have set up the report. And if we come back, it should have saved them. Yep. So the last thing that we need to do is we need to actually download the report files. So I'm going to create a folder for them within reports. And we will get the URLs for those. So we're going to get title.txt, we're going to get form.html, we're going to get index.php, and we're going to get report.php. Now, report.php is compatible with Pika 7 and OCM 8. There will be another file that, as of the time of this video, I haven't added yet, but there will be one called report6.php that will be compatible with older versions, and you'll just want to download that one instead and then copy it to report.php and rename the file. So let's get report.php. Oh, we already got it. Let's get rid of that. So now, if we go to sitemap, you should have a link to the LSC COVID report. So here's where you would modify your date parameters for whatever reporting period you're in. You hit generate report, and it will download a CSV file. As you can see, this one didn't return anything because I didn't mark the one case in the database as being COVID related. So let's run it again after we pull that case back up. Alright, so Bart Simpson, we're going to say COVID related is yes. Funding source is CARES Act. Office, this is going to be in the PAI office. And let's also say that this is a veteran household. And let's say that his gender is male and his ethnicity is other. And let's try running that again. So now we're pulling data. We are missing, it looks like, problem code and closing code, since the case is open and since I forgot to assign a problem code, but everything else filled in, and I also forgot to add in a birth date, so that's missing, but everything else filled in. So this is what the CSV file format will look like. One last thing I want to show you is just the difference between the version 6 and version 7 reports. So there's actually a couple lines, and I have comments, so these should be, for version 6, these two should be commented out, these comment marks should be removed, and then these two lines should be commented, no, actually, these two lines should be commented out, these comment marks should be removed. And again, I will put a version called Report 6 in the repository as well, but that is the only difference between the versions. So there we have it. That is how you install and set up the COVID reporting module that will generate this CSV format